energetic, spiky-haired main characters with demons within them, both striving to become the most respected heroes, that being the Hokage, as well as the Wizard King. Hello everyone, my name is ToasterXD, and today we're covering Naruto Versus Asta. I actually asked this question on my community tab and got very mixed responses, so Daddy's here to give you the answer to it. And with me today, I have the legend of Black Clover content himself, Broku. So if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Enjoy the video. Within the war arc of Naruto, we would actually get introduced to several new metas when it actually comes to scaling Naruto, and a lot of these methods are very contentious, so I can go over the sort of non-refutable arguments when it actually comes to actually scaling him. And just for starters, we can actually just pretty concretely scale him to Momoshiki. Considering Momoshiki's superior power as an Otsutsuki when compared to Kaguya, he should possess tremendous raw strength and be capable of performing even more impressive feats than Kaguya. Momoshiki, along with Kinshiki, was actually fully aware of the chakra presence that was happening on Earth, and the spatial curvature which Kinshiki actually refers to as a 16, when they actually expected a 10. They would then later find out that the spatial curvature was actually mainly due to Naruto. It's not only this, but Sasuke, someone who actually faced Kaguya, was actually convinced that Kinshiki alone was actually a threat that was surpassing Kaguya. So it's probably logical to assume that even a unfused Momoshiki would be comparable to Kaguya, and if not, even greater and stronger, as Momoshiki is over Kinshiki. And if Sasuke thinks Kinshiki is at least a threat that surpasses Kaguya, Momoshiki would still be indeed stronger. And this is a unfused one, as I said prior. With her full powers, Kaguya had the ability to create a large truth-seeking orb that could engulf and destroy her Genesis dimension. This is supported by the 4th data book, which also goes on to describe Naruto's black orbs behind him, which we now know are truth-seeking orbs, although obviously these ones behind Naruto aren't the same size as the one Kaguya actually created. However, the orbs are comprised of all 5 elements and possess both yin and yang energy, enabling it to annihilate the world and reduce it to nothing. It's probably important to emphasize that this feat goes beyond mere destruction and actually gives a direct answer to the destruction, emphasizing nothing, as I mentioned earlier. The Genesis planet had 2 moons orbiting in the distance, which we actually see later on that Kaguya's dimensions actually contain things like moons in its orbit, which can get pretty insane when you consider things like Versus Battle Wiki's standards for tiering. Kaguya intended to vaporize everything in her dimension, which, if anything, actually underestimates the situation even more when you consider that the data book suggests that she will obliterate everything in her dimension to absolute nothingness, which Zetsu even comments on the inclusion of time and space within said vaporization. To put it into perspective, if the distance from the Earth and the Moon were to be considered, the radius, according to Google, would be around 384,000 kilometers. It's worth noting that a moon can actually only be a certain distance from its planet, so using the distance from the Earth to the moon isn't actually out of the question. So this distance is pretty reasonable to use. Additionally, Kaguya's orb is depicted as exploding in all directions, or omnidirectional, and not solely towards the moon, as the moon orbits the planet. Accomplishing this would require a force of roughly 6.11 undecillion joules, which is more than enough to destroy an entire planet. Kaguya's dimensions surpass the size of a mere planet, however, and its orbiting celestial bodies. Many people have long debated the extent of her dimensions, questioning whether they even require a star for illumination. However, we actually have a definitive answer based on official Naruto content. In the Naruto OVA titled The Day Naruto Became Hokage, there is a scene at the end featuring Sasuke, who, while Naruto was becoming Hokage, was shown traversing Kaguya's dimensions, providing a clearer glimpse into what these dimensions might actually contain. What's more is that we see a presence of a fully developed star, as well as an enormous moon orbiting within one of the lesser dimensions. Not only did the glowing moon appear in these dimensions, but it was never intended to glow on its own. Additionally, these dimensions seem to have distinct seasons, as well as complete day and night cycles. This completely disproves the belief that the moons or suns in these dimensions possess artificial lighting, as anyone claiming that the moon or the star is artificial would need to present evidence to support their claim, as it's impossible to ask the audience to prove a negative based on that principle, the moon is considered a moon and the star should be considered a star. To further prove this, we can actually look at Momoshiki's alternate dimensions that actually contain numerous stars as well as planets and even other celestial bodies, providing further evidence that these dimensions have real rather than fake astronomical objects. If there is a star in Kaguya's dimensions, there should be a considerable distance between the star and the planet, similar to the distance between the Earth and the Sun, which is around 149 million kilometers. Assuming a sphere of this size, the energy generated would be a lot, amounting to 360 trillion joules, which is like nuking the solar system with nukes the size of a planet. In essence, it would give Naruto a lot of empirical weight when it actually comes to his scaling, as he would pretty much reach large star level, pretty much just solar system going by this. Furthermore, the attack potency of Kaguya's attacks can be scaled to the power of the Expansive Truth-Seeking Orb, as the Expansive Truth-Seeking Orb is essentially created by Kaguya using her own chakra, along with the chakra of the Shinobi Alliance. It should be noted that the Shinobi Alliance, even with the power boost given by Naruto, would still not reach the level of the Nine Tails in terms of power. Even without such impressive feats, Kaguya is capable of generating attacks of similar magnitude, especially considering that she was heavily fatigued by the end of the battle. Fatigued Kaguya alone would still reach a power level close to that of Solar System, if not surpass it. Well, as for speed, Naruto characters since the beginning of Part 1 have exhibited speeds ranging from faster than light to light speed. For example, Haku's ice mirrors were explicitly stated to move at light speed. This is evident when Haku intercepts Kakashi's Raikiri, despite being mentally enhanced but physically weaker. Even if one doubts the validity of scaling based on Haku's abilities alone, Itachi's water bullet is also described as detonating at speeds faster than light. Considering this, it's reasonable to assume that Naruto, as a child, can be scaled to this level of speed. In the fight against Haku, Naruto demonstrates his prowess by overpowering him to the point to where Haku admits his inferiority. This marks the pinnacle of Naruto's power in Part 1, culminating in his achievement of the one-tailed cloak form during his battle against Sasuke, which is vastly superior to the zero-tailed cloak he used against Haku. Within Shippuden, if we ignore things like Naruto's consistent training throughout the series, we can actually get him to several times the speed of light. Looking at things like the curse mark within Part 1 of Naruto, or the second stage of the curse mark that Sasuke used against Naruto at the Final Valley, is a 10 times amp off his base form. This becomes relevant when we consider the fact that this is a Senjutsu, which is basically a unrefined version of the Sage Mode transformation Naruto uses against Pain. Sage Mode being a refined version of the curse mark in a way would naturally mean it's superior, granting Sage Mode an amp of at least 2 times that of the curse mark. And again, this is a significant lowball to both Naruto's training as well as the Sage Mode amp. If we consider that KCM is only twice as strong as Sage Mode, as well as KCM2 and the Sage of the Six Paths, we could very easily get Naruto into the 160 times the speed of light. This, of course, as I mentioned, is a ridiculous lowball, and I'll begin to explain why. If we take the fact that Six Tails Naruto is vastly beyond Sage Mode Naruto, as we see within the fight against Pain, Six Tails does better than Sage Mode pretty blatantly. Even someone like Jiraiya, who is inferior to Sage Mode Naruto due to their performances against Pain, as well as statements supporting this fact, that Sage Mode Naruto is above Jiraiya. After this, it's stated that Naruto and Pain should be in a class of their own, and what this basically implies is that there's no one in the story at that given time that is on par with Naruto and Pain. This becomes relevant when taking into account the fact that base Jiraiya is relative to Four Tails Naruto, which is consistent with Orochimaru kind of holding his own against Four Tails Naruto. And this fact gets further proven when Jiraiya states that Four Tails Naruto nearly killed Jiraiya at one point in their training, so Sage Mode should be above that of Four Tails, around the level of a Five-Tailed Naruto. We also know that within the War Arc, the chakra cloaks that Naruto was handing out was above a 3 times amp onto Kakashi, so using above a 3 times amp, we can immediately assume a 4 times amp off of each tail Naruto gains, which is actually a low ball when considering that this is one shinobi that Naruto lent chakra over to. We know that Naruto without Kurama should have at least 4 times more chakra than that of Kakashi, but with the added chakra of the Nine Tails, he has around 100 times more than that of Kakashi, meaning that Kurama should have at least 25 times more chakra than that of Naruto. And since Sage Mode is around a 5 tails amp, so we take Naruto and Kurama's chakra difference, which is 25 times, multiply that by our lowballed QB chakra cloak amp, which is 4 times, and do that 5 times more, giving us a mode amp of 102,400 times. If we look at Naruto and Sasuke's first fight, where Naruto used his one-tailed cloak form, Sasuke actually had to use the second stage of the curse mark to actually fight on par with one-tails Naruto. The second stage of the curse is a 10 times amp, as we established prior, so if we assume that the true one-tailed cloak is a 10 times amp rather than the 4 established by Kakashi during the war arc, then we'd have the same multiplier but with 25 times 4, and then finally adding the 5 10 times amps on top of that, making about in that 10 million times the speed of light, or in that MFTL plus ranges of speed. Of course, this is a highball and you can choose to use this level of speed, however I'll leave this up to your interpretation. If we then assume that KCM1 is a 2 times difference off of Sage Mode, and give that same treatment until the Sage of the 6 Paths, then we'd end up with millions of times the speed of light, which, as I mentioned, should be up to your own interpretation. Not only this, but Naruto also has universal scaling that's probably worth mentioning, as it's actually very similar to the metas that come up with Asta scaling. If we take the fact that Kaguya was going to destroy her Genesis dimensions to nothing, as the scan implies, then this would mean it's very space-time as well. This is supported by the fact that Zetsu also comments on the inclusion of said time-space, as we do know that Kaguya did indeed create these dimensions, which many people argue that she didn't actually create them due to mistranslations with Viz, and saying that what she did was merely weave the dimensions like a thread, but the actual context behind this is weaving the dimensions like a thread within the context of knitting a sweater, meaning that it's still creation. Even if you denied this fact, she also was going to completely annihilate this realm and recreate it using her expansive True-Seeking Orb, which, as we went over previously, also includes the dimension's very time-space as well. A time-space by necessity is 4th dimensional due to its dimensionality, with Universal Plus now being in the realm of possible scaling. Due to a time-space being 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal, she could potentially qualify for this level of power due to her actually scaling to the True-Seeking Orb due to dimensions I mentioned earlier. This of course is up to your interpretation, and if you choose to go by the scaling I mentioned earlier, then it's entirely up to you. This was mostly just to show that Asta isn't the only one with a universal scaling meta.
Asta might be a lot more varied than you think. Everybody knows he's the boy with anti-magic and a massive sword.
That's a huge bitch!
But it's much more than that. He's also blessed with a body of immense physical strength, being so strong that as a child, he was able to do 1,000 one-armed handstand push-ups inside of a Grand Magic region. Grand Magic regions are areas kind of like national parks, but on cocaine and steroids, where it is hard for even established magic knights to breathe or walk through, even with reinforcement magic around them. And Asta, as a child with no powers, is training in that shit like it's his PE class. And he's probably a lot stronger than you think. Now, there are misconceptions about anti-magic in Black Clover. Yes, it does have aspects of power nullification and durability negation, but it still has attack potency, and Asta almost always scales to the power of his anti-magic. It's told to us in chapter 4 of the manga that sure, he can negate any magic no matter how strong it is, but it does not negate the physical force that magic produces. Now, one of the early villains in Black Clover is the Fire Spirit Salamander. It is stated in the data book, which was made by the creator of Black Clover, that it was able to vaporize an ocean with a swing of its talon, as well as create a fireball the size of 1,000 Ri. Both of these are calculated to be worth many petatons of TNT, or even up to exatons of TNT, putting it in the multi-continental levels of attack potency. Mind you, this was a villain from almost 300 chapters ago, and Asta at that time scaled to it in his base form. Then, around 100 chapters later, a character known as Reeve would be introduced, the elven incarnation of Dorothy. Inside of her glamour world, she created moons, which should put her at least moon level. But if you go by the fact that Dorothy's glamour world really is a universe that she created, and there are a bunch of stars in it, it could be that she's multi-solar system or even universal. Asta definitely scales above her, especially in his black form at that point. But the power progression of Black Clover would get even crazier in the Spade Saga, as it would introduce the King of Devils, Lucifero. He has 4 different statements where he's going to destroy the world. If you go by inverse scaling, he would be many thousands of times stronger than Reeve, who created moons, which should then imply that these statements are referring to him destroying the planet, not just destroying society. And Lucifero has now been power cliffed in the final saga of Black Clover. He's not even a top 10 powerful character anymore, and Asta in his base form is now many times stronger than him. In this video, I scaled how much stronger Asta has gotten, and if you stack the multipliers on his forms and techniques, he should be at least Dwarf Star level. When it comes to Asta's speed, he is one of the faster characters in modern shonen, as he was fighting fast and light characters as early as chapter 64, as Patri has multiple statements of being light speed, and Veto is stated to be on a whole other level than Patri. Later on, a character known as Meregliona had a feat where she's calculated to attack at 16 times the speed of light. Yet Asta was able to move a few hundred feet in the same time that it took her attacks to move a few inches. And that was his base speed over 200 chapters ago. Because anti-magic power increases in scale linearly with attack potency and speed, if we calculated what Asta's speed would be right now, it would be well into the massively faster than light plus speed tier, probably even many millions or billions of times the speed of light. When it comes to abilities, it's obvious Asta has power nullification with his anti-magic, and it should work on chakra even without verse equalization, as mana and chakra are similar enough. If Asta struck you with his Demon Dweller Sword, it would absorb your magic or your chakra. He can also absorb attacks thrown at him and launch it back, giving that attack anti-magic properties. Meaning that, yeah, Asta in theory could absorb an attack from Naruto and launch it back at it even stronger with the negation ability of anti-magic. But probably one of Asta's best abilities is the Demon Destroyer Sword and its causality break, which lets him actually affect the physical causality of the universe. As when his church father was poisoned by magic, he actually negated the spell even after it was already gone, as he removed it from causality by severing the cause and effect of it. He can also sever the cause and effect between one's magic power and themselves, essentially shutting off their magic power, rendering them completely powerless. And he actually doesn't even need to touch them with the sword, as while he was fighting the Devil Twins, Lilith and Nama, they were actually physically intangible, yet he was able to teleport the anti-magic inside of them. When he fought the evil Wizard King Lucius, he was able to activate his causality break while Lucius was in the middle of teleporting. Asta can actually use the Demon Destroyer's causality break to heal himself, as when he was poisoned, he negated the cause and effect of that poison, so that it never poisoned him in the first place. With the Demon Slasher Katana, Asta can mimic Yami's abilities of Dimension Slash and forge his own Infinity Slash. Dimension Slash was durability negation, as it cut through dimensions and space, and because Asta is mimicking Yami's ability, he should have the same properties of durability negation, but even higher. On top of all of this, Asta has an ability called Zetten, which augments his power 10 to 100 times during the activation. It's kinda similar to Kaioken. He can also use it to attack somebody's magic power directly to defeat them without even harming them. Speaking of Asta's technique mimicry, this is one of his most underrated abilities, as he can basically copy your ability just by seeing it a few times. He was able to learn ki sensing almost instantly after seeing Yami doing it. And while fighting Kyoto, he noticed that this guy had dance moves that made it so that when he danced, it was hard to sense him, and also when he was attacked, the dance moves actually reduced the damage he took. And Asta was able to mimic this dance move nigh instantaneously. On top of all of this, Asta probably has 4th dimensional powers, as it is stated that Zenon's spatial magic can create hyperspaces. And later on, Lily gets a stronger spatial magic than Zenon, as she gets Beelzebub, the god of space, incarnated inside of her. Hyperspaces are spatial dimensions comprised of 4 dimensions or higher, and Lily actually thinks if she trapped Asta in a stronger version of this 4th dimensional cube, that it would not be powerful enough to actually contain Asta anyways.
So the winner of this matchup mainly depends on which speed meta you choose to actually use. If you think Asta is way faster than the likes of Naruto, then while Naruto does outscale in AP, he wouldn't really be able to touch Asta, especially when Asta has things like Causality Break, where he can erase the attack and pretty much just make it so it never existed, which is assuming that he has his Demon Destroyer Sword. Alongside this, he could also use things like spawning anti-magic inside Naruto, which would temporarily disable Naruto's chakra with verse equalizing. If, however, you think Naruto is indeed faster than Asta, then it wouldn't really matter whether Asta could erase Naruto's attacks if he couldn't actually react to it. I personally believe that Naruto just has more win cons for this specific matchup, as Naruto is superior in both AP as well as destructive capabilities, and my personal opinion is that he is faster than Asta. The only thing I could really say for Asta in particular is that if they are indeed closer in speed, then it would most likely just be a case of Naruto not being able to use his attacks and Asta not being able to land a hit on Naruto. And if we're not giving Asta his Demon Destroyer sword, then Naruto just wins. I don't really think this matchup isn't close by any means, although my personal opinion is that Naruto just has more win cons than Asta, and it'd probably end up being a win-loss ratio of around 70-30, with Naruto winning the majority of the time. With that out of the way, I'd like to say thanks to Broku for coming onto this video and doing the Black Clover portion of things. If you liked this video and you're a fan of Black Clover, go check out Broku's channel. He's the top dog when it actually comes to Black Clover content, and his content is really enjoyable, so go check him out. And bye.